The deep research facility was still 30 kilometers away when they found the first sign that they weren't alone on Terminus 7. Tai Sung spotted it first. Fresh tracks in the dust, boot prints, several sets, all heading in the same direction they were traveling. The prints were no more than a day old. Other survivors? Tai Sung wondered aloud. Pal scanned the tracks with its sensors. Unlikely. The pattern suggests an organized group. Equipment weight distribution indicates heavy machinery. This is a salvage operation, not survivors. They followed the tracks carefully, staying alert. Within an hour, they saw smoke rising in the distance. As they got closer, they heard the sound of cutting tools and voices calling to each other. They crested a ridge and looked down at what had once been a supply-way station. Now it was crawling with activity. 3 large transport vehicles were parked nearby, their cargo holds open. A group of people in work suits were systematically stripping the station of anything valuable. Metal panels, computer components, power cells, everything that could be salvaged and sold. Scavengers, Pal confirmed. A professional crew by the look of it. Tai Sung counted at least 8 people, maybe more inside the buildings. They worked with the efficiency of a team that had done this many times before. Should we avoid them? Tai Sung asked. Probably wise. Scavenger crews can be territorial about their claims. But even as Pal spoke, one of the scavengers looked up and spotted them on the ridge. The woman shouted something to her companions and the entire crew stopped working. Several of them reached for weapons. Too late, Tai Sung muttered. He raised his hands in a peaceful gesture and started walking down the ridge. Pal followed, moving slowly with its damaged leg. They approached the way station carefully, making no sudden movements. The scavengers gathered into a defensive group, weapons ready but not quite aimed. As Tai Sung got closer, he could see they were a mixed group. Young and old, experienced and nervous, all of them looked hard-worn by difficult work in harsh places. One woman stepped forward from the group. She was in her 30s with short black hair and eyes that missed nothing. She wore a modified work suit covered in pockets and tool loops. A plasma cutter hung from her belt and Tai Sung had no doubt she knew how to use it as a weapon if needed. That's far enough, she called out. State your business. Tai Sung stopped about 10 meters away. My name is Tai Sung. I'm an engineer with the Restoration Corps. I crashed here 6 days ago. I'm just trying to survive and complete my mission. The woman looked him over, then studied Pal with obvious interest. That's a military-grade combat mech. Those don't come cheap. I found it at my crash site. It was left behind during the evacuation. And it just decided to help you out of the goodness of its artificial heart? Tai Sung smiled slightly. Something like that. We're heading to the deep research facility. We're not here to interfere with your salvage operation. The woman exchanged glances with some of her crew. After a moment, she seemed to relax slightly. Name's Bora. I run this crew. Been working Terminus 7 for 2 years now. Never seen Restoration Corps out here before. The program is trying to reclaim abandoned colonies. I volunteered. Volunteered to come to a dead rock with no water and toxic air? You're either very brave or very stupid. Bora studied him more carefully. What's at the deep research facility that's worth risking your life? Tai Sung hesitated. He wasn't sure how much to tell her. But something in Bora's expression suggested she was more curious than threatening. Research data, he said finally, left behind by a botanist named Heywan. She was working on something important before the evacuation. Bora's expression changed. Heywan. I've seen that name in the logs. She was one of the ones who stayed behind, wasn't she? Yes, she died trying to finish her work. I want to honor that by making sure her research doesn't die with her. Several of the scavengers shifted uncomfortably. One of them, a younger man, spoke up. That's noble and all, but what good is old research? The colony is dead. Nothing grows here. Nothing can grow here. That's what everyone thought, Tai Sung replied. But Heywan found something. Microbes in the deep aquifers. She believed they could terraform the planet. Make it truly livable. Bora's eyes narrowed. Terraforming? That takes centuries. Maybe, but it's a start. And she was also researching the silence, the contamination that drove everyone away. She thought she could find a treatment. The scavengers exchanged looks. The silence was clearly something they had heard about. Bora crossed her arms. Even if you're right, even if this research is as valuable as you think, what are you going to do with it? You don't have a ship. You don't have communication equipment strong enough to reach beyond this system. You're stranded here just like we are between jobs. Then I'll find a way, Tai Sung said firmly. I didn't come this far just to give up. Bora studied him for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She laughed. You know what? I believe you. You've got that look in your eyes. The true believer look. I've seen it before in people who come to places like this. She stepped forward and extended her hand. Tell you what, we're heading toward that area in a few days anyway. There's a communication hub near the deep research facility that we want to strip. We can give you a ride part of the way. Taesung shook her hand gratefully. Thank you. That would help a lot. Don't thank me yet. I'm not doing this out of charity. Your mech is damaged, and I'm betting you've got engineering skills. You help us with our salvage work for the next 2 days, and we'll get you where you need to go. Fair trade. Fair trade, Taesung agreed. Bora turned to her crew. Back to work, everyone. We've got a schedule to keep. She looked at Taesung again. You can set up camp near our transports. We'll start you on light work tomorrow morning. Rest today. You look like you need it. As the scavengers returned to their work, Taesung and Pal made their way to the transport vehicles. They found a spot to settle down, and Taesung finally allowed himself to relax slightly. That went better than expected, Pal observed. Yeah, Bora seems reasonable. She's also calculating. She sees value in us. When that value runs out, her hospitality might run out too. Maybe, but for now we have allies. That's more than we had this morning. They spent the rest of the day resting and observing the scavenger operation. It was impressive in its organization. Bora ran her crew with firm efficiency, and they clearly respected her. The work was hard and dangerous, but they handled it with practiced skill. That evening, Bora invited Taesung to share a meal with her crew. They gathered around a portable heating unit, eating ration packs that were only slightly better than the emergency rations in Taesung's pack. So, what's your story? Bora asked him. What makes someone volunteer for the Restoration Corps? Taesung thought about how to answer. I guess I wanted to fix things. Humanity expanded so fast, colonized so many worlds, but we left a lot of wreckage behind. Abandoned colonies, failed projects, lost dreams. I thought maybe I could help restore some of what was lost. Noble, Bora said. Also naive. Most of these colonies were abandoned for good reasons. Some were, but some were just forgotten, given up on too easily. Don't you think they deserve a second chance? Bora was quiet for a moment. Maybe, but second chances don't pay bills. Salvage does. We strip what we can, sell it to recycling operations, and move on to the next dead world. It's not romantic, but it keeps us alive. Doesn't it bother you? Taesung asked. Taking apart what people built? Erasing the last traces of their dreams? Every day, Bora admitted quietly. But what else can I do? The galaxy is full of dead colonies and empty stations. At least by salvaging them, we make sure the materials get reused. That's better than letting everything rust into dust. One of the younger crew members spoke up. Bora used to be a colonist herself. She knows what it's like to build something and watch it die. Bora shot the young man a look but didn't deny it. I was part of an agricultural colony on Theta Prime. We tried for 8 years to make it work. Crop failures, equipment breakdowns. Corporate support got cut. Eventually, we had to abandon it. I was 17 when we left. Watched my parents cry as we lifted off, leaving everything they'd worked for behind. I'm sorry, Taesung said. Don't be. It taught me a valuable lesson. Dreams are expensive and the galaxy doesn't care about them. Now I deal in practical things. Metal, components, things that have clear value. But you're helping me anyway. Bora smiled slightly. Yeah, well, maybe some part of me wants to believe that not everything built has to die. Maybe if your botanist's research is real, it'll prove that some dreams are worth keeping alive. They talked long into the night. Bora told stories of the colonies she had salvaged, the things she had found, personal logs, photographs, reminders that real people had lived in these ruins. Her crew added their own stories. They were hard people made harder by harsh work. But underneath, Taesung sensed something else. A longing for something more than just survival and profit. Pal listened quietly to all of it, occasionally asking questions. The scavengers treated the mech with a mixture of respect and curiosity. None of them had worked with an AI that seemed so human. As the group began to settle down for the night, Bora pulled Taesung aside. I need to... Captain Daewon Kim stood on the bridge of the colony ship New Horizon, watching the beautiful blue planet below. New Seoul was home to 4 million people. His wife and daughter lived there in a small house near the northern farmlands. He smiled thinking about his daughter's garden. She was only 8 years old, but she loved growing vegetables. The communication screen suddenly lit up. Ambassador Taeho Lee's worried face appeared. He was calling from the Galactic Council station, thousands of light years away. "Captain Kim, we have a serious problem," Ambassador Lee said. "The Vraxian Empire just delivered an ultimatum to Earth. They want all our outer colonies. We have 72 hours to respond." Daewon felt his stomach drop. The Vraxians controlled 23 star systems. They were warriors, cruel and powerful. Humanity had only been traveling between stars for 30 years. Compared to the ancient species in the galaxy, humans were newcomers. "What did the council say?" Daewon asked. Ambassador Lee's face darkened. "They voted not to interfere. They called it a minor territorial dispute. The council won't even discuss it." Daewon looked down at New Sol. He could see city lights appearing as the planet rotated into night. Somewhere down there his daughter was probably doing homework. His wife was probably preparing dinner. "We're not going to surrender, are we?" Daewon asked quietly. "Earth is meeting now to decide," Ambassador Lee said. "But you know the answer already." The transmission ended. Daewon called his wife immediately. Her face appeared on his screen. He could see their kitchen behind her. "Daewon, what's wrong?" she asked, seeing his expression. "Nothing yet," he said. "How's our little farmer?" "She's outside looking at the stars. She says she can see your ship." His wife smiled, then her expression changed. "Daewon, tell me what's really happening." Warning alarm screamed across the bridge. His navigation officer shouted, "Captain!" Multiple ships just appeared. Vraxian warships. Daewon's blood turned cold. "How many?" 30 ships. "Attack formation. Get me a channel to them. Move us between them and the planet." The New Horizon was not a warship. It was built to carry supplies and people. It had defensive shields, but nothing that could stop a military fleet. Still, Daewon positioned his ship between the Vraxians and his home. A Vraxian commander appeared on the main screen. The alien's 4 eyes gleamed with cruel satisfaction. "Human vessel, move aside. This planet is now property of the Vraxian Empire." "The 72 hours aren't up yet," Daewon said. "Earth hasn't responded to your demands." "Your time is up," the Vraxian said. "This is what happens when lesser species refuse to understand their place." "Watch, human. Learn what defiance costs." The transmission cut off. Daewon opened all frequencies. "This is Captain Kim to all ships in the system. Hostile forces are about to attack New Sol. Anyone who can help, please respond." Only silence answered. The other human ships nearby were cargo vessels and mining craft. None were armed. "Captain, the Vraxian ships are powering weapons," his tactical officer reported. "They're targeting the planet's surface. The northern continent, where his family lived. Maximum shields. Put us in their firing line," Daewon ordered. "Captain, our shields won't stop them," his first officer said. "I know. Do it anyway." The New Horizon moved into position between the Vraxian fleet and the planet. One colony ship could not stop 30 warships. But Daewon would not move aside while they murdered his family. He opened a channel to the planet. "New Sol, this is the New Horizon. Evacuate immediately. Get to emergency shelters. This is not a drill. You have 10 minutes. His wife's face appeared on his screen. She was running, their daughter in her arms. "Daewon, what's happening?" "Get to the shelters," he said, his voice breaking. "Right now, run!" The Vraxian fleet opened fire. Massive energy beams shot past the New Horizon. Too many for one ship to block. Daewon watched in horror as the beams hit the planet's surface. The northern continent lit up with explosions. Cities vanished in balls of fire. Beautiful farmlands turned to burning wastelands in seconds. His wife's transmission cut off mid-scream. The bombardment continued for 20 minutes. The Vraxians destroyed every major city on New Sol. 4 million people lived there. By the time the firing stopped, the cities were gone. The farms were gone. Everything was burning. Daewon stood frozen, staring at the screen. The planet that had been so beautiful was now covered in fire and smoke. He tried to call his wife, no signal. He tried emergency frequencies, nothing. The communication networks were destroyed, Captain, his communications officer said quietly. "We're receiving a transmission from the Vraxian flagship. They say it's for all of humanity." Daewon's hands clenched into fists. "Put it on screen." The Vraxian commander appeared again. Behind him, other Vraxian officers were celebrating. Attention, humans. This is the fate of those who defy the Vraxian Empire. We have broadcast this message to all your colonies and to Earth. You have 48 hours to surrender your remaining territories. If you refuse, we will do this to every human world. Your species will be erased from the galaxy. The transmission ended. Day One stood unable to speak, unable to think. His crew looked at him, waiting for orders. But what could one captain do against an empire? His communications officer spoke again with surprise. Captain, we're receiving a response from Earth. It's being broadcast on all frequencies. They want the Vraxians to hear it. Play it, Day One said. A woman's voice came through, calm and cold. It was Earth's Defense Council. The message was short. You have made your choice. Now we make ours, that was all. No threats. No demands. Just that one simple statement. Day One looked at the burning planet below. Somewhere in that fire, his wife and daughter might still be alive in a shelter, or they might be dead. He didn't know. All he knew was that the Vraxians had just made the biggest mistake in their empire's history. They had shown humanity what they truly were. And now humanity would show them what humans became when everything was taken from them. The galaxy was about to learn a terrible lesson about pushing peaceful species too far. Commander Yuna Han sat in the cockpit of her fighter, waiting for the launch signal. Around her, 40 other pilots were doing the same. They called themselves Ghost Squadron, and they were about to be the first humans to attack Vraxian territory. All pilots, this is Admiral Choi. The voice came through their helmets. You know your mission. You know what they did to New Sol. Make them understand that was a mistake. Make them afraid. Good hunting. The launch bay doors opened. Yuna pushed her throttle forward and her fighter shot out into space. Behind her, the rest of Ghost Squadron followed. Ahead of them, 3 human warships were moving toward the Vraxian border station at Vraxis Prime. The Vraxians were not expecting an attack. Why would they? They had just destroyed a human colony. They thought humanity would be too terrified to fight back. Their border station was running normal operations, with only standard defenses active. That was their second mistake. Captain Daewon Kim stood on the bridge of the Indomitable as it approached the Vraxian station. He could see it on his screens, a massive structure with docking bays for hundreds of ships. His tactical officer was feeding him information constantly. Station shields are at minimum power. They have 23 defensive guns active, approximately 5,000 Vraxians on board, 3 warships docked for repairs. Daewon thought about New Sol, about his wife and daughter who might be dead or might be in a shelter somewhere, injured and alone. He thought about 4 million people who had done nothing wrong except live in the wrong place. Target all weapons on their shield generators, he said calmly. Fire when ready. The Indomitable opened fire. Its weapons were unlike anything the Vraxians had seen before. Humanity had studied every battle the galaxy had ever recorded. They had learned from everyone else's mistakes. They had made weapons designed specifically to kill. The station's shields collapsed in seconds. The Vraxians inside barely had time to raise alarms before Yuna's Ghost Squadron was among them. Break formation, Yuna ordered her pilots. Hit the weapons platforms. Don't let them get organized. Her fighter danced between laser fire, moving in ways that Vraxian gunners couldn't predict. She fired missiles at close range, destroying defensive guns one by one. Other pilots followed her lead, each one targeting critical systems. But the Vraxians were not helpless. They were warriors who had conquered 23 systems. They began to fight back. Yuna watched 2 of her pilots die as Vraxian fire caught them. She heard their last words over the radio, then silence. Keep moving, she shouted to the remaining pilots. Don't be an easy target. On the Indomitable, Daewon watched the battle unfold. His ship was taking heavy fire from the 3 Vraxian warships. His shields were holding, but they wouldn't last forever. Sir, enemy ships are trying to undock, his tactical officer reported. If they get into open space, they'll have better firing angles. Daewon made a decision that would have horrified him a month ago. Target the docking clamps. Trap them there. But sir, that will cause explosions inside the station. There are civilians on board. Do it. The Indomitable fired on the docking mechanisms. Metal tore and twisted. The Vraxian ships were trapped against the station, unable to maneuver. They were sitting targets. Finish them, Daewon ordered. One by one, the Vraxian warships exploded. The blasts tore into the station itself, causing secondary explosions. Atmosphere vented into space. Power systems failed. The station began to break apart. Yuna saw escape pods launching from the dying station, hundreds of them carrying Vraxian survivors. Should we target the pods? One of her pilots asked. Yuna hesitated. The Vraxians had not given any mercy to New Sol. They had killed civilians without thinking twice. Part of her wanted revenge. Part of her wanted to destroy every single escape pod. No, she said finally. Let them go. We're here to destroy their military, not murder refugees. But send a message to those pods. Tell them to remember what happened here. Tell them to warn their people. The battle lasted 30 minutes. When it was over, the Vraxian border station was destroyed. 3 warships were gone. Human forces had won their first victory, but the cost was visible. Yuna had lost 8 pilots. The Indomitable was heavily damaged. The other 2 human ships were in even worse condition. Did we win? One of Yuna's young pilots asked over the radio. He sounded shocked, like he couldn't believe they had survived. We won this one, Yuna replied. But this was just the beginning. News of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light. The Galactic Council received reports with disbelief. Humanity had attacked, actually attacked. That was not how wars were supposed to start in civilized space. The Vraxian Empire's response was immediate and furious. Admiral Mira Vok, one of their best commanders, was ordered to take a fleet and crush the human forces before they could attack again. How many ships do I have? Mira asked her superiors. 75 warships, more than enough to deal with these primitives. Mira was not so sure. She had read the reports from Braxis Prime. The humans had fought with a savagery that was unusual in galactic warfare. They had trapped enemy ships and destroyed them without hesitation. They had damaged their own forces significantly, but had kept fighting anyway. These humans are different, she told her officers as they prepared to leave. They fight like cornered animals. Be ready for anything. Back on Earth, Admiral Choi was planning the next phase. The attack on Vraxis Prime had been a success, but she knew the Vraxians would respond with overwhelming force. That was exactly what she wanted. Let them come after us, she told General Sung. Let them think they can win with superior numbers. Then we'll show them something they've never seen before. Private Jaemin Cho finished his training and was assigned to a Marine unit. His first mission was to defend a human mining colony that intelligence suggested would be the Vraxians' next target. He arrived at the colony with 5,000 other Marines. The colony had only 3,000 civilian workers, but it produced metals that were essential for building warships. The Vraxians would want to take it or destroy it. Dig in, his sergeant ordered. Make them pay for every meter of ground. Jaemin helped build defensive positions around the colony. Trenches, bunkers, weapons emplacements. They worked day and night, preparing for an attack that could come at any moment. Dr. Hana Park's hospital ship was stationed near the mining colony, ready to receive wounded. She watched through a window as Marines prepared for battle. They were so young. Most of them were Jaemin's age or even younger. They're children, she said to her assistant. So were the people on New Sol. Her assistant replied quietly. Hana knew that was true, but it didn't make it easier to watch. The Vraxian fleet arrived 3 days later. 75 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel above the mining colony. Admiral Mira looked at the human defenses and smiled. They had maybe 15 warships protecting the colony. This would be easy. All ships, attack formation, she ordered. Destroy the human fleet first, then bombard the colony. But as her fleet moved forward, something strange happened. The human ships didn't try to run. They didn't pull back to defensive positions. Instead, they charged straight at the Vraxian fleet. What are they doing? Mira's tactical officer asked, confused. Mira watched in disbelief as the human ships crashed directly into Vraxian formations. They weren't trying to win a clean victory. They were trying to cause chaos. Several human ships were destroyed almost immediately, but they took Vraxian ships with them. Then Mira understood. The humans weren't trying to win in space. They were buying time for the ground forces. All ships ignore the remaining human vessels, she ordered. Begin planetary bombardment, but it was too late. The human ships had already closed the distance. Vraxian ships couldn't fire on the planet without risking hitting their own forces. The two fleets were tangled together in close combat. On the ground, Jaemin heard the explosions in space. He saw flashes of light as ships died overhead. Then he saw the Vraxian troop ships beginning their descent. Here they come, his sergeant said. Remember your training, stay calm. Shoot straight. Jaemin gripped his rifle and waited. His hands were shaking, but he told himself it would be okay. He had trained for this. The first Vraxian soldiers hit the ground 400 meters from his position. They were large creatures, heavily armored, carrying powerful weapons. They began advancing toward the human defensive lines. "Open fire," the sergeant ordered. Jae-min pulled the trigger. The battle for the mining colony had begun. The battle for the mining colony lasted 11 hours. Private Jaemin Cho spent every minute of it in terror and adrenaline. The Vraxian soldiers were bigger than humans, stronger, and their armor was thick. But they had never fought an enemy like humanity before. The Vraxians advanced in organized formations, like they were on a parade ground. They expected the humans to break and run when they saw the overwhelming force. Instead, the humans dug in and fought from cover. They used the terrain. They set traps. They fought dirty. Jaemin watched a Vraxian squad march directly into a minefield. The explosions tore them apart. The survivors tried to retreat, but human snipers picked them off. This wasn't the clean warfare the galaxy was used to. This was brutal and ugly. "They're not adapting," his sergeant said, watching through binoculars. "They keep using the same tactics even though it's getting them killed." "Why?" Jaemin asked between shots. "Because they've never had to adapt. They've been winning for so long they forgot how to struggle." By the time the sun set, the Vraxian ground assault had failed. They had lost thousands of soldiers trying to take the mining colony. The humans had lost hundreds, but they still held their positions. In orbit, Admiral Mira stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Her fleet had been reduced from 75 ships to 48. The humans had only 3 ships left, but those 3 were still fighting, still causing chaos. And she couldn't bombard the colony because her own troops were too close to human positions. "Pull back," she ordered finally. "This colony isn't worth what it's costing us." Her officers looked shocked. The Vraxian Empire did not retreat. But Mira was a practical commander. She could see a losing battle when she was in one. As the Vraxian fleet withdrew, the human defenders cheered. They had won. Jaemin collapsed in his trench, shaking with exhaustion and relief. He had survived his first battle. Dr. Hannah Park's hospital ship was overwhelmed with wounded. Marines with burns, broken bones, missing limbs. She worked for 20 straight hours, moving from patient to patient, doing what she could to save them. "How many did we lose?" she asked a nurse finally. 347 dead, 600 wounded, half of them critical. Hannah felt sick. Nearly 1,000 casualties to defend one colony. And this was just one battle. How many more would there be? But there was no time to think about it. More wounded were arriving. She went back to work. News of the mining colony battle reached Earth quickly. Admiral Choi studied the reports carefully. The humans had won, but barely. The Vraxians were learning. They wouldn't make the same mistakes twice. "We need to keep them off balance," she told General Sung. "We can't let them adapt to our tactics." "What do you suggest?" "We go after their supply lines, their logistics. We make it impossible for them to maintain their war machine." General Sung nodded. His special operations teams were ready for exactly that kind of mission. Colonel Yoonji Baek led one of those teams. She was a specialist in urban warfare and sabotage. Her mission was to infiltrate a Vraxian supply depot on the planet Vraxis 4 and destroy it. Her team of 20 commandos approached the planet in a stealth ship. They landed in a remote area and spent 3 days moving toward their target, hiding during the day and traveling at night. The depot was in a city of 3 million Vraxians. Getting in would be nearly impossible. Getting out would be even harder. "Are we really going to do this?" one of her team members asked. "We're really going to do this," Yoonji confirmed. "The supplies in that depot feed 6 Vraxian fleets. If we destroy it, those fleets will have to withdraw for resupply. That saves human lives." They infiltrated the city disguised as Vraxian workers. It wasn't a perfect disguise, but in a city of millions they could blend in if they were careful. They reached the depot after 2 days of careful movement. The depot was enormous, filled with ammunition, fuel, and food for Vraxian forces. It was also heavily guarded. Hyunji counted at least 200 guards on patrol. "We'll never fight our way through that," one of her commandos said. "We're not going to fight," Yoonji replied. "We're going to be smart." They spent 2 more days studying the depot's routine. Guards changed shifts at specific times. Supply trucks came and went on a schedule. There were patterns, and patterns could be exploited. On the 6th day, they made their move. Half the team created a diversion on the other side of the city. A small explosion that drew security forces away from the depot. While the Vraxians were distracted, Yoonji and the rest of her team slipped inside. They planted explosives throughout the depot. Not just bombs, but incendiary devices designed to make everything burn. Fuel, ammunition, supplies, all of it would go up. They were almost out when a Vraxian guard spotted them. He raised an alarm before Yunji could stop him. Suddenly, hundreds of guards were converging on their position. "Run," Yunji ordered. "Get to the extraction point." Her team scattered, each one taking a different route. Yunji stayed behind to detonate the explosives. She had a remote trigger in her hand. She could blow the depot now, or she could wait until her team was clear. She waited. Vraxian soldiers were closing in on her position. She could hear them shouting, coordinating their search. 10 more seconds. That was all her team needed. She counted down in her head. 10, 9, 8. A Vraxian soldier appeared around the corner. He raised his weapon. Yunji raised the detonator. 7, 6, 5. The soldier fired. The shot hit Yunji in the shoulder, spinning her around. She fell, but her finger pressed the trigger as she went down. The depot exploded. The blast was so large it destroyed 3 city blocks. Fire reached hundreds of meters into the sky. The explosion could be seen from orbit. Yunji's team made it to the extraction point. 16 of the 20 commandos survived. Yunji was not among them. Her body was never recovered from the burning city, but the mission was a success. 6 Vraxian fleets had to withdraw for resupply. That gave humanity breathing room to rebuild and prepare for the next phase of the war. Similar operations happened across Vraxian space. Human special forces struck supply lines, communication centers, and fuel depots. The Vraxians had never fought an enemy that used guerrilla tactics. They didn't know how to respond. Meanwhile, scientist Hyunwoo Nam was developing new weapons in a secret lab on Mars. His latest creation was something he called a stellar torpedo. It was designed to destabilize a star's fusion reaction, causing massive solar flares that would devastate any planets in the system. "This weapon is horrifying," his assistant said, looking at the designs. "If we use this, we're no better than the Vraxians who destroyed New Sol." Hyunwoo stared at the plans. "I know, but the Vraxians are developing something similar. We intercepted their research. If they finish their version first, they'll use it on Earth. We need this as a deterrent. And if deterrence fails?" Hyunwoo didn't answer. He didn't want to think about what it would mean to actually use such a weapon. The war continued. Months became a year. Then 2 years. The fighting spread across dozens of systems. Both sides suffered terrible losses. But humanity kept coming. For every ship destroyed, 2 more rolled out of the shipyards. For every soldier killed, 3 more enlisted. Captain Daewon Kim's fleet fought in battle after battle. The Indomitable was scarred and repaired so many times that almost none of the original ship remained. Kim himself had changed. The man who had captained a peaceful colony ship was gone. In his place was a warrior who knew nothing but fighting. He received word one day that survivors had been found on New Sol. The underground shelters had protected a few thousand people. His daughter was among them. His wife was not. Kim wanted to go see his daughter. He wanted to hold her and tell her everything would be okay. But he couldn't. He was needed at the front. The war wouldn't stop just because he wanted to see his child. Instead, he sent her a message. "I'm sorry I can't be there. I'm fighting so what happened to your mother never happens to anyone else. I love you. Wait for me." He didn't know if she would understand. She was only 11 now, raised in a shelter while the world burned above her. What kind of life was that for a child? But that was why they were fighting. So that eventually, children like his daughter could grow up without fear, without war. The galaxy watched the human-Vraxian war with growing alarm. This was not how warfare was supposed to work. Wars were supposed to be limited, controlled, and civilized. This war was none of those things. Ambassador Taeho Lee received messages from the Galactic Council constantly. They wanted humanity to agree to peace talks. They wanted both sides to negotiate. "Tell them no," Admiral Choi said when Lee asked for guidance. "The Vraxians started this. They'll surrender unconditionally, or we'll destroy their empire completely. Those are the only options." The galaxy trembled. They had created this. They had refused to help when humanity asked. Now they would watch what happened when you pushed a peaceful species into total war. Captain Sumin Lim guided her stealth ship through the darkness between stars. The Shadow was designed for one purpose: to go where humanity's enemies didn't want them to go. For 3 years, she and her crew had been conducting deep raids into Vraxian territory, gathering intelligence and striking targets that seemed impossible to reach. Tonight, they were tracking a Vraxian convoy heading toward a secret research facility. Intelligence suggested the Vraxians were building something dangerous there, something that could change the entire war. "I have the convoy on sensors," her navigator reported quietly. 6 cargo ships, 3 escorts. Sumin studied the display. "What are they carrying?" "Can't tell from here. The cargo containers are shielded. Whatever it is, they really don't want anyone to know about it." That made Sumin suspicious. She had learned to trust her instincts during this war. When the enemy hid something that carefully, it was usually worth investigating. "Follow them," she ordered. "Maintain distance. Let's see where they're going." The shadow trailed the convoy for 2 days, staying just outside of sensor range. Finally, the Vraxian ships arrived at a moon orbiting a gas giant. There was a large facility on the surface, surrounded by defensive platforms and guarded by a dozen warships. "That's a lot of security for a research station," Sumin's tactical officer observed. "Get me everything you can about that facility. I want to know what they're building." Her crew worked for hours scanning the facility with every sensor they had. Slowly, a picture emerged. The facility was drawing massive amounts of power. It had a particle accelerator larger than anything humanity had ever built, and the energy signatures suggested they were working with stellar physics. "They're building a star killer," Sumin said quietly. "A weapon that can destroy entire solar systems." Her crew went silent. Everyone knew what that meant. If the Vraxians completed that weapon, they could use it on Earth, on Mars, on every human colony. Billions would die. "We need to report this immediately," her communications officer said. "We will," Sumin agreed. "But first we're going to destroy it. Captain, we're one ship. There are 12 Vraxian warships guarding that facility." "I know. Start planning anyway." Back on Earth, Senator Dayun stood before the Planetary Congress. She was exhausted. For 3 years she had been fighting a different kind of war, trying to keep humanity's government functioning while the military consumed every resource available. "We cannot continue like this," she told the assembled senators. "Our economy is collapsing. Every factory is making weapons. Every shipyard is building warships. Our people are starving because we've converted farmland into military bases. We must consider peace negotiations." An older senator stood up angrily. "Peace? The Vraxians murdered 4 million people on New Sol. They've destroyed 8 more colonies since then. You want to negotiate with them?" "I want this war to end before there's nothing left of humanity to save," Daun replied. "Yes, the Vraxians started this. Yes, they've committed terrible crimes. But we've been fighting for 3 years, and we're no closer to victory than we were at the beginning. How many more must die?" The debate raged for hours. Half the Congress wanted to continue fighting until the Vraxian Empire was destroyed. The other half wanted to at least explore the possibility of peace. In the end, they decided to send a message to the Vraxians offering conditional surrender terms. The Vraxian Emperor Thaxron received the human message in his throne room. He read it once, then laughed. The humans wanted peace? After 3 years of attacking his empire, killing his soldiers, destroying his planets? They would get no peace from him. "Send them this message," he told his advisors. "Tell them we will accept nothing less than their complete surrender. They will give us Earth itself, or we will take it by force. And tell them our new weapon will be ready soon, very soon." The message reached Earth 2 days later. Senator Yoon read it and felt her heart sink. There would be no peace, not now. Maybe not ever. Admiral Choi received the same message. She had expected it. The Vraxians were too proud to negotiate when they thought they could still win. But intelligence had reported the Starkiller weapon. If the Vraxians finished it, the war would be over. Humanity would lose everything. "We need to destroy that facility," she told General Sung. "Whatever it costs." "Captain Lim's ship is already there," General Sung reported. "She's requesting permission to proceed with an attack." Admiral Choi closed her eyes. She knew Sumin, a good officer, a brave woman. Sending her against that facility was essentially a death sentence. Tell her she has permission. And tell her we're grateful. Dr. Hannah Park sat in her office on the hospital ship Mercy reading casualty reports. 3 years of war, 17 million human casualties, dead, wounded, missing. The numbers were so large they stopped meaning anything. She thought about the young Marines she had treated. Private Jamin Cho had been through her hospital ship 4 times now. Each time he was more scarred, more damaged. Not just physically. Something in his eyes had changed. The boy who had wanted to be a farmer was gone. In his place was someone who only knew how to fight. "How do we fix them?" she asked her assistant. "Even if we win this war, how do we fix all the broken people we've created?" Her assistant had no answer. A message came through from Admiral Choi. The Vraxians were building a doomsday weapon. If it was completed, Earth would be destroyed. Hana felt numb. 3 years of suffering, 3 years of death, and it might all be for nothing. One weapon could end everything. What do we do? Her assistant asked. "We keep working," Hana said quietly. "We keep saving who we can. That's all we can do." Captain Suman Lim received her orders from Admiral Choi. She gathered her crew in the Shadows briefing room. They were 23 people, specialists in stealth operations. They had survived 3 years of impossible missions. This would be their last one. "The facility we've been watching is building a weapon that can destroy Earth," Suman told them. "We've been ordered to destroy it. I won't lie to you. We probably won't survive this mission. If anyone wants to stay behind, I'll understand." Nobody moved. Nobody volunteered to stay. They were all committed. "All right then," Suman said. "Let's go save the human race." They spent 2 days planning. The facility was too well defended for a direct attack. But they had noticed something. The cargo ships that delivered supplies were scanned, but not as carefully as military vessels. If they could hijack one of those ships and hide their weapons inside, it was a terrible plan. It relied on luck and timing, but it was the only plan they had. They waited for the next supply convoy. When it arrived, they attacked, quickly disabling one of the cargo ships. Suman's crew transferred to the captured ship, hiding the Shadow nearby. They put the cargo ship's crew in escape pods and sent them away. Then they joined the convoy, pretending to be the cargo ship they had captured. "This will never work," her tactical officer said nervously. "It has to work," Suman replied. "There's no alternative." The convoy approached the facility. Vraxian security scanned each ship. Suman held her breath as they scanned the captured cargo ship. The disguise held. The Vraxians cleared them to dock. "We're in," her navigator whispered. They docked at the facility. Suman and her crew unloaded cargo containers while Vraxian workers watched. Inside the containers were weapons, explosives, and a fusion bomb, powerful enough to destroy the entire facility. They carried the containers deep into the facility, placing them near the particle accelerator. If they could destroy that, the Starkiller weapon would be set back years. But as they were placing the last explosive, a Vraxian security officer noticed something wrong. He raised an alarm. "Go!" Suman shouted to her crew. "Get back to the ship." Her crew ran while she stayed behind to arm the explosives. She could hear Vraxian soldiers coming, their heavy footsteps echoing through the corridors. She worked quickly, activating the fusion bomb's timer. 5 minutes. That was all the time she could give her crew to escape. She ran toward the docking bay, but Vraxian soldiers were already there. She wouldn't make it. Her crew would have to leave without her. She opened a communication channel. "Shadow, this is the captain. Undock immediately." "That's an order." "Captain, we're not leaving you," her first officer replied. "You have to. The bomb goes off in 4 minutes. If you're still here, you die for nothing." "Undock now." She could hear the pain in her first officer's voice. "Yes, Captain. It's been an honor. The honor was mine. Now go and tell Admiral Choi. Tell her we got it done." The Shadow undocked and fled. Suman watched it go on her wrist display. At least her crew would survive. At least they would tell Earth what happened here. She turned to face the Vraxian soldiers coming toward her. She had 3 minutes left. She drew her pistol. "Come on then," she said. "Let's make this interesting." The explosion was visible from orbit. The entire facility, the particle accelerator, the Starkiller weapon, all of it vaporized in nuclear fire. The Shadow barely escaped the blast radius. When news reached Earth, Admiral Choi stood alone in her office for a long time. She had sent Suman on that mission. She had known it was probably a death sentence, but there had been no choice. "We're monsters now," she said to herself. "We send people to die and we call it necessary." General Sung found her there an hour later. "The weapon is